So thank you everybody so much for joining us. My name is Julia and I lead the marketing team here at Integrate.io. Today you're in great hands. Our Solutions Engineering team lead, Teri Morgan, is going to be walking through our platform. Teri works with our clients every day to achieve amazing results by understanding and helping them to solve any underlying technical problems that they face. Just as a little bit of a housekeeping reminder, every registrant is going to receive a copy of this live demo in your inboxes this week, and we welcome your questions and feedback throughout. Please feel free to chat anything you'd like Teri to specifically address at any point during the webinar. Should we run out of time to answer your specific questions, we'll be sure to get back to you this week with some answers. And now I'll turn it over to Teri.
Terrific. Thanks, Julia. I'm so happy to be here today. Let's see. Now, you may be wondering, what is Integrate.io? So Integrate.io is a no-code data platform comprised of 4 separate software products brought together to meet the needs of modern businesses. Now, as you can see on the slide, we were founded in 2012. Our team is global, allowing us to really support the needs of companies around the world. Now, security is a top priority for us. As we put together and built this scalable platform, it was a primary focus. And the platform is really built to scale as your company grows and your data needs change. Now, without further ado, I'm going to leave the slides behind so we can step into the product. Let's see, here we go. So now, once you come over to our website, from our website, you can log into the platform. And when you do, you will see this page here. This is detailing, it's hearkening back to those 4 different software products that I mentioned. So starting on the far left, we have the ETL and reverse ETL platform. Next, the ELT and CDC platform. Now, you may be thinking that these sound a little similar, like what is the difference between ETL and ELT? So E stands for extract, T is our transformation piece, and load is loading the data into your destination. So the real difference between these 2 different products is where that transformation happens. Where does the T go? So in an ETL process, the data is extracted, transformed, and then loaded into your destination. Versus in ELT, the data is extracted and loaded directly into your destination. And once it's there, probably in your data warehouse or database, then the transformation happens. So you may be wondering, like, even with that information, I'm not sure which is the right, which methodology is really the right one for me. So some things you might ask yourself, for instance, do you have a really, you have a large database where records are being added and updated constantly, you wanting that data moved across, maybe in as close to real-time speeds as possible. If that's the case, then the ELT and CDC platform may be the best choice for you. This data is replicated by reading the binary logs of the database. So we read those logs and replicate across any changes. And our ELT and CDC platform can replicate data at 1-minute intervals, which is really which is faster than almost anybody else in this industry. Now, on the other hand, maybe one of your primary concerns when you're looking for a tool to extract and load your data is the team that will be performing those tasks. Maybe you have a team and they're not very technical, but they're the ones that are going to be setting up those pipelines. Well, in that case, an ETL, our no to low code ETL platform, might be the best fit for you. It is very functional and capable of complex transformations, but making them as simple as possible, really as no code as it can be. But either way, whether you choose ETL or ELT, you're going to want to monitor the quality of that data. And you can do that using our data observability tool. Now, data observability allows you to set alerts alerts that monitor for specific metrics in your data warehouse. So if the data passes outside of that defined acceptable range, then your team receives an email notification. Hey, you've got some things going on in the data. We are alerting you that it has passed outside of that metric. And this is functionality that we have built and given to every Integrate.io customer free of charge. Now, so that kind of covers our first two softwares here. The third one is our API generation tool, also known as Dream Factory. Now with Dream Factory, you can create a fully documented and secured API on virtually any data source in minutes. It's really fantastic. And finally, data warehouse insights. So, whether you're using ETL or ELT, you're gathering your data frequently. Many of our customers are gathering their data into kind of a single source of truth into their data warehouse. And this tool will help you make sure that that data warehouse is running as smoothly and efficiently as it can. So at a high level, those are the 4 different software tools in our suite of products. Today, we're going to look more closely at the ETL and reverse ETL platforms. So let's log in here. We'll select an account. And at this point, we are now within the ETL and reverse ETL platform. I am going to start here at the top icon. On that left-hand side in that dark gray toolbar, this is our connection menu. So in here is where you would create connections to any and all of your data sources. You can see in this extensive menu that there are a lot of native connectors that this platform supports. So you'll see here on the upper left-hand side, all of your major data warehouses, file storage, object store devices, so we can read in files, as well as databases, both non-SQL databases, as well as all of these relational databases in the lower center column. In addition to all of those data sources, you'll see in the services category, we support all sorts of native connections to sales platforms, marketing platforms. Coming through here, we have CRM systems and ERPs all the way to the bottom of this list. And this one here, the REST API connection, is a reference to our universal REST API connector, which allows us to really access data in just a myriad of other places, really any place where there is an API set up in front of that data, we can access using this connection. So once you have come in here, you've created a connection to your data source, then it's stored here in this page, ready for you to use in an ETL pipeline. So to build an ETL pipeline, we will come down to this icon, our package editor. So for us today, I'm going to create a new package and I'll give it a name. Now there are 2 different types of packages, both data flow and workflow. So kind of at a high level, the difference between these two is, let's start with data flow. A data flow is probably what you think of when you think of an ETL pipeline. We extract data, perform transformations, and load it into your destination. That's what happens in a data flow. Now, a workflow, on the other hand, allows you to define a sequence of tasks. A data flow can be a task in a workflow. You can also run SQL statements, either on your database or data warehouse as tasks in that workflow. And then you define the conditions that must be met in order to move from one task to the next. So for instance, maybe I want to run data flow A first. And when it completes successfully, now I want to run data flow B. But I can also define a path for failure. If it fails instead, maybe I want to do something totally different. I want to run data flow C. And so like that, that is the type of flow you can define in a workflow. Okay, and before I go ahead and create our package, I will mention that we have built out dozens of templates to some of the most common services and applications that our clients are using. The data in these templates is ingested using that universal REST API connector that I mentioned. And these templates really just help you get up and going, moving that data. For instance, if you're ingesting data from Jira, you could get up and going with one of those pipelines, quick and easy with one of these templates. But for our demonstration today, we're going to build from scratch. So I will go ahead and create a package. Okay, this is our blank canvas, if you will. So to build a pipeline, we start by adding components. And you can see here in this component menu that we have data source components on the left, transformations in the center, and destinations on the right-hand side. So for our ETL pipeline that I decided we would build today, I decided on a use case that's pretty common that I see. And in fact, I helped a client build out this very particular use case recently, where he had data. He uses this lead generation software, and that software exports a file into his SFTP server every day. And he needs to get that lead data into his CRM system, Salesforce, so that his sales team can use that data. So we were going to build a pipeline where we're extracting data from an SFTP server, some lead data. Now, that system has slightly different standards than Salesforce is expecting. So some of that data will need to be transformed a little bit before we load it here into Salesforce. So let's get started. After selecting our file storage component, you can see it just kind of drops down. You can put it wherever you'd like, and then click on it to open it up. Setting it up happens in 3 quick steps. So the first has to do with selecting the particular connection that we built on that previous connection page. So this is the connection to my SFTP server. The next step has to do with where is that file located, the file path. Let me just grab that. Okay, and mine is located here in this directory, this leads.csv file. Now, this component, you can see here in these next settings, this component, we can define the record delimiter, so new line or end of file, and with a CSV, that's going to be new line, so I'll leave it. And record type, any kind of delimited value file is supported by this component, but it can also read in JSON files. We can even read in XML files using the raw setting. Here in the delimiter drop-down menu, you can see some of the most common delimiters, but even if it's a custom delimited file, we'd be able to read it in any custom delimiter as well. But this comma is the one I need. First row, my file does contain field names in that first row. So I'm going to just move to the final step here. The component is now connecting to that file server. You can see it loads in my available fields that are all selected here on the right-hand side, as well as a preview of the data. So down here, I can take a look at that data. And I did mention that we were going to maybe need to transform some of these fields. So if we look at the file, I can see I've got, a company name, I've got a first name, a last name. Admittedly, the last name is all in kind of a different syntax than the first name. Last name is all in lowercase. I kind of like those to match. So that's maybe one one small transformation we can make is to capitalize that first letter. Also notice that this email field is kind of a strange format with both uppercase, like all uppercase, and then all lowercase. So I'll probably want to standardize that so that they're all lowercase, a little more common. And then we have a couple of date fields here at the end. We have this create date, which you can kind of see up here. If you look at it up in the list, is a date time data type. And then we've got this last update type of kind of a custom string, kind of a date. And I think I'd like for that to be also a date time, like the create date. So I'll probably want to make a change there too. So we'll just mention those, and then we can move on I'll go ahead and save this component, and we'll be able to move on now and talk about transformation. So we'll come back into this to our menu, and there are 15 transformation components in this list, from select at the top down to distinct. Now, most of them fit into kind of one category, really. I'm going to leave select. I'll talk about that one in a second, but these other 14 from sort down to distinct, these are no code transformation components. They perform their transformations at a table level, meaning that the entire table is transformed in the same way. But setting them up is very, very simple and straightforward. For instance, you don't need to, be able to know all the details and the syntax of writing a SQL join statement to be able to perform and use this join component. You select your join keys from drop-down menus. It's very simple to set up. So any of these types of transformations, joins, filters, you can perform aggregation, all quick and easy to set up. Now, I mentioned we would talk about the select last. The select is a little different. So I'm going to add it to our pipeline, and we'll open it up. The reason the select component is different is because you can transform the data field by field in here. So it's empty right now. I'm going to autofill, and that brings that list of fields from our file here into the component. Now you can see on one hand, on the left hand is the expression column, and on the right is the alias. So at any point, for instance, if you needed to rename any of your columns, I could just rename those here in the alias column, and then they'd be just that name going forward. Very easy transformation to perform here. Now, we also talked about some of those other transformations. So the last name field was one of those. It was all lowercase, if you recall. I'm going to open this icon to the left of that field name, and that opens our expression editor. So in addition to those 14 no-code transformation components, there are over 200 pre-built functions available for you to use while you're setting up transformations with your data. And they are just grouped in these different folders. So whether you need to maybe hash some sensitive data, that's available in here. Our particular transformation is going to be found here in this string folder. That last name field, if you recall, those were all lowercase. And I would like to capitalize that first letter. And there is a function just for that in here, because apparently it's such a common function, it's such a common desire for people. So you can see inside this tooltip that the syntax for using this function just has the name of the function, and then the field name is inside of parentheses. So I am going to replicate that syntax and put my last name field inside those parentheses. Then when this function executes, it will take that entire column of last names, capitalize the first letter, and leave the rest lowercase. So I can save that. Now we've performed that transformation. If you remember, the email was also a field like that. So I'm going to come in here, and this is another string function that will allow us to take all of the letters in that email address and convert them to lowercase. It's a little bit more of a common standard way of seeing email addresses. So I can transform that data like so. I'll save it. And then there was one last transformation we wanted to do, and that's this last update field. I would really like for that timestamp to be the same as that create date. So given that it's a string right now, and I want it to be a date time data type, I'm going to use a cast and parse function for this. So let's see, the one that I want is this to-date custom format, because right now it's in a custom format. Whoops. So that field name goes in first, but then we have to tell this function what the custom format that these dates are in. So mine was a 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and a 4-digit year. Okay, I'll close my parentheses, save that. And when this job runs and this component executes, it will make these 3 transformations to that data for me. Okay, I'll save that. So we've extracted our data, we brought it in from the file, we've transformed it, and now it's ready to go into Salesforce. So I would select the Salesforce component here, gets added to my pipeline, select which particular Salesforce connection I want to use, and then which object do we want it to be loaded into? And mine is lead data, so I'm going to select that. Let's move to the final step here, and this is a mapping step. So we're going to map those input fields that are coming from our previous select component, and previous to that, the file, to the Salesforce fields in that object. So let's see. So I want to map this first name field from my file. Let's search for the one in Salesforce. There's the one in Salesforce. Now I need a company name. So let's find that field, and it matches to company. Last name is also a required field to load this data. So I'm going to grab that last name field, and then so on and so forth. You could add more fields and map them together. And then that's really all that it takes to load that data here into Salesforce. I'm going to save this component. And you can see how quick and easy it was to set up this pipeline here. And so we've really completed that part. If we wanted, we could click save and run this job, and the pipeline would run. And you can always manually start your jobs here. But when you're ready to actually automate this process, because no one wants to come in and click a button every time they need to move their data, then we would set up a schedule for this. Now, I'm going to save this package, and I will mention while we do so that you can see inside the save options that we support version control here. And every time you perform a save, you can create either a minor version or a major version to your package. So I'm going to create a minor version. We can see right over here that it ticks up to version 1.1. This means that you can also roll back if you ever realize you broke something. But we're going to go over here to the scheduler to talk about scheduling that job so that it happens automatically. Now, when you schedule, when you create a schedule, you give it a name. Maybe this might be my daily schedule, for instance. Then we can leave a description, but I'm good for right now. And I'm going to move to this portion here where you tell the schedule when you want it to execute. And you can define a custom cron expression, or you can just tell it to repeat every certain number of increments of time. Anything from minutes all the way up to months. For us, this is going to be a daily schedule. So I'm going to say run every 1 day. The second piece here, the second step, has to do with the cluster. And this is the resources on our side that we spin up to run your job. Now, these defaults are all fine for me. The last step is adding packages to this schedule. So I could come in here and find that demo package that we just built. Now, the default is always run the newest, latest version of that package, but you can specify a different version. And then you'll always have the opportunity to edit any variables before you add it to the schedule. Okay, so you can see we've added that one package to our schedule. We can run this schedule just one package on it. Now, but maybe I have 10 different packages I want to run every day. So I would be able to add them all here, clicking on the Add Package button. And then when we turn this schedule on, when it arrives at the time that you've set it to go off, then it will spin up that cluster automatically. It will process all the jobs in parallel. When they have completed, it will shut the cluster back down, and we don't persist any of your data. Okay. Once your jobs are running automatically like this, though, you might be interested, most people are interested in notifications. So we would come over here to the settings icon, and under service hooks, you can create notifications. And we can notify you in any of these 4 ways. And you get to choose, what do I want to be notified about? There are job-related notifications. There are cluster-related notifications. You can have we can send you an email about all of them, Or you could maybe decide, really all I care about is send me an email when my job fails. And that's fine too, anything in between. So let's say your job fails and we send you an email. When you get that email, it's going to tell you what was the job, when did it fail, and it will provide you a link that brings you right back here in the dashboard to this page. This is your jobs page. This is where you're going to see your jobs as they're running back in time. Let's look for one that failed real quick. Oh, here's a failure. So let's say that this is the one I got my notification of. I'd be able to come in here. I'd be able to view the error logs, read through them, figure out what went wrong. I can go back into my package and fix it. Like this particular one, it looks like there was no database selected, so it didn't know where to pull that data from. But maybe I didn't know. I might not have been able to figure out exactly what was wrong, or I didn't know how to fix it. So right here in the lower left-hand corner of the dashboard, you have access to our live chat support right here in the platform. And as you can see, they typically reply in a few minutes. So with an average, honestly, average 2-minute response time and a 92% customer satisfaction score, you will receive some of the best support really in the industry right here. Okay. Now that really kind of concludes the demo part. I'm going to step back over here. Thank you so much for joining me for the demo part. I kind of want to leave the last few minutes here for any questions that we might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Teri. I'll just go ahead and read out a couple that we got in here. One question we got was how the platform handles large data volumes.
Oh, how the platform handles large data volumes. So the platform is really built for big data. We are meant to move big data sets, and we generally, honestly, I generally don't see a lot of struggle there. However, there are certainly there could be instances where maybe you need, because there's a lot of parallelization built right into the way we move the data. However, if you find that you are moving an even larger data set that maybe you would like to move even more quickly, our platform is very scalable. So if you need more resources, we're looking to improve that parallelization. We can always add an additional node to the cluster to really meet whatever your needs are as far as that data movement.
Perfect. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more. Here's a question. Our databases are all behind firewall. Will Integrate.io be able to connect to all of them?
You know, that's a really great question. So yes, the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is that we support 3 different types of access to your databases. So anything from direct connection, where you whitelist our IP addresses, which generally isn't what you want to do with your firewall, to an SSH tunnel and a reverse SSH tunnel. So really the most secure way, and the way that I recommend to my clients when they don't want to open up any holes in their firewall, is that last option. The reverse SSH tunnel is very secure, and we don't have any trouble connecting to those databases, even behind a firewall, even located on premise.
Perfect. Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, especially all of our attendees and yours, Teri. So I think we could leave it here. But again, everyone, any other questions that you might have, we're always here for you. Go ahead and live chat us, email us in at hello@integrate.io. Find us on LinkedIn, send a carrier pigeon, whatever works for you. We're here to answer your questions. And thank you, Teri.
Thank you.